Nationwide Aadhar debate. Citizens confused about Aadhar implementation. And India asks, should you link or not link Aadhar to mobile networks, bank accounts, insurance policies, schools and a score of other services? The confusion compounded by lawmakers who take contrarian stance, like West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, who has refused to link her Aadhar with her mobile service provider.
আজকে আধুনিক জগতে যে সিস্টেমে করা হচ্ছে এবং ওয়েবসাইটে দিয়ে দেওয়া হচ্ছে সেটা মানুষের ফ্রিডম অফ এক্সপ্রেশনের ক্ষেত্রে খুব ডেঞ্জারাস। এটা ডেঞ্জারাস ফর দ্য সোসাইটি, ডেঞ্জারাস ফর দ্য ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালস, ডেঞ্জারাস ফর দ্য কান্ট্রি অলসো।
The opposition cashing in on the chaos and saying that Aadhar is being poorly implemented and it is unfair to make Aadhar mandatory.
They are moving towards an Orwellian state. Why should I link my Aadhar when I buy a plane ticket or a rail ticket or admit my child or grandchild to a school? Why? But I think this has assumed such monstrous proportions that the Supreme Court is stepping in.
Dissenting voices now being raised within the BJP too, with senior BJP leaders saying that Aadhar data can be compromised and misused by foreign agencies like the CIA.
Concept of Aadhar is a good concept. That you want a data bank system by which you can find out, fraudulent accounts and fraudulent subscriptions and so on. But it has to be accompanied by a reasonable cost only on your privacy.
As confusion reigns, Mira now asks the question that every Indian is asking today. Should we link or not link Aadhar? Let's debate. Mira now report.
Well, we're only going to focus on one question tonight. To link or not to link? And we've put together an excellent panel of experts to help us answer this question. And we're going to try and arrive at a clear answer by the end of this conversation. That is the point of this entire show, to link or not to link. Joining us on the show this evening, Nalin Kohli, national spokesperson of the BJP. Nalin Kohli is also an advocate with the Supreme Court. So we're very happy to have his time on Mirror Now this evening. We'll also have Sanjay Jha join us through the course of the conversation. Ritesh Bhatia is a cybersecurity expert. Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate with the Supreme Court, will join us as well. And Ashish Dikshit, advocate with the Supreme Court. I want to point out to our guests that we have both sides of the story, those for and those against, and equally divided. I'm going to start with Mr. Nalin Kohli. Mr. Nalin Kohli, there have been various arguments right now about Aadhar. One is wait for the Supreme Court to give us its verdict. The opposition has come out and said that you're entering. It's gone far beyond the boundaries that it was entitled for. And finally, Mr. Subramanian Swamy within the government turning around and saying we're causing a massive privacy and data risk for the country. It's at national. We put ourselves at risk as a nation from data because of Aadhar. What are your responses right now? And do you believe we should link our cards to all of the things that we're being asked to link it to?
This is a wide debate, Faye. Thank you. I must point out that you've been trying and your team to get me on your channel. It's just not been possible because of travel, but I'm happy to be on your show for the first time. A couple of things. It depends who's looking at it. We need to look at it from a larger perspective. I don't think everyone in the country is asking whether they should link their Aadhar or not. A large number of people probably want their Aadhar linked because benefits are flowing to them.
Yes.
So let's start from the top, which is the privacy question. Let's first decode in a minute what happened. When Aadhar was being brought in, there was a challenge to it. Out of that, which is pending in the Supreme Court, out of it, a question arose whether, privacy is a fundamental right or not, which has been answered by the Honorable Supreme Court. Simultaneously, there was a move to link Aadhar with the PAN card numbers of income tax, which also the Supreme Court has affirmed that yes, that's okay, you can go ahead with it. The larger question of the challenge to Aadhar, which is the main petition, continues. There are obviously arguments on various points. The first is about, the question of being tracked, or in terms of all your data being there with the government. I think we should stop using mobile phones. Google probably has more data on us than the government of India has. In terms of our taste preferences, Facebook has that for the same matter. That you go onto Facebook and you start checking something, that is the kind of thing which comes up. That's what artificial intelligence is all about. That you are now looking at what are preferences of a person and then predicting what they would want, which is how, our preferences are being looked at from a consumeristic perspective. So now let's come back to the question in India. Aadhar means a lot for someone who is down the beneficiary line, where you remove the ghost beneficiaries, as 57,000 crores has been saved in terms of false pensioners, dead pensioners, people who are not getting their stuff because there was duplication, or a Munna Bhai MBBS type of, somebody walking in and saying, I'm Nalin Kohli, whereas being somebody else. So, there is a whole aspect to that. The second aspect is about data protection. Obviously, data has to be protected, but Yahoo's, and I use Yahoo data was breached. Our passwords were all breached. Does that mean we stopped using Yahoo? Tomorrow, you've had banks being breached. Does that mean we stop banking? Which is not only in India, globally also. There have been data leakages with terms of WikiLeaks, which has had implications on countries and diplomacy. Does that mean that transactions over emails should stop? That's not how it is. If there are accidents, that doesn't mean you stop driving cars. But you have to put in place the mechanism for the misuse, which is what the government has done in terms of it. There is a data protection law, and that will step in. Just because, so therefore, to throw out the baby with the bathtub is not the solution. The solution is to find where are the problems that may arise, and then finding the solutions for that, not throwing out the whole concept. In any case, you, me, any one of us go to take a visa to travel anywhere abroad. Biometric steps in, our eyes, our fingers, everything, they are mapped. And when we travel, that's also available on global databases. So I think, there is protection to be there. If anyone breaches that protection, as it has happened with banks globally, it's happened with Yahoo, etc., then people and the mechanisms step in. Same with Aadhar. And I end with saying what I started at the beginning. Not everyone in India is. Different things matter to different people. Those who are above, after an educated, we belong to a more affluent, a more knowledgeable thing. We look at questions like privacy and all that. At one end of the scale, there is also in India people who don't get 2 square meals a day. And if corruption is rooted out, if they become the beneficiaries to receive the money that's due to them directly in their bank accounts, do not need to depend on intermediaries, middlemen. For them, the whole scale is very different. So this means separate things for separate people. Right. In a society, it is meant to be. The Supreme Court is obviously looking at it, and each one of us has a right to put out our point and demand equally protection, that there is no misuse of the information that we give. We are all on the same page with that.
Very well said. Nalin Kohli's opening statements on why he believes that Aadhar is safe. And just to recap, he said, data breaches are like accidents. We have to find solutions for them. There is a data protection law that the government is bringing. And he said, if you're giving your data to Google and Facebook and you're comfortable with Google and Facebook, why aren't you also comfortable with the government of India? Also, Ritesh Bhatia joins us, cybersecurity expert who's been a critic up till now on Aadhar. Respond to this one particular thing, data breaches that have happened, and we've reported them on this channel. There have been several. And you have specific numbers on data breaches. Do you believe them to be accidents that should be fixed? Why do data breaches make you nervous, Ritesh Bhatia?
See, as I have repeated again and again, the data breaches make me nervous because of identity theft. That has, we have already spoken about that. But I want to respond to Mr. Nalin Kohli for this particular thing as far as the data protection laws are concerned. We don't have any data protection laws, except besides Section 43A under the IT Act, which protects your personal or sensitive information. We have nothing as such. So the data protection law is still on the table, is to be enforced. So why don't we wait for it before we move with such a tearing hurry?
What about within the UADI Act or the Aadhar Act?
Even under the Aadhar Act, where the data protection is just there, the government is not held liable as such. Over there, they have been excluded. So whoever are punished, like, those 45,000 operators or these people, they have been punished. The centers have been closed down. Fine, but then what next? What about the data breaches that have already occurred? As far as the Facebook is concerned or Google is concerned, I'm getting certain kind of services, and this is what I'm asking for. I have certain protection mechanisms I can do. I understand that, my mobile phone has become a sensor. So, and but with the UIDAI plus with the mobile phone, the whole human being has become a sensor. We're just giving away data all the time.
If you're comfortable, and answer this point that Mr. Kohli made, if you're comfortable giving away data to Google and to Facebook, why are you uncomfortable giving it to the UIDAI?
You know, I'm not comfortable, but then there are ways where I can stop my data from being shared. I know my privacy settings.
Yes.
It's not mandatory. I mean, it's not mandatory for, you know, somebody in the rural areas are not using Google and Facebooks. So they, but most important thing, let's not forget this, as he said, as Mr. Nalin said, that this is for the poor people to get their food. It was meant for that. So first, let's focus on that. Are they getting it? If you ask me, if you see certain videos and interviews of people in rural areas, there are these pause devices because they have to put up on jamun trees and people have to go slightly up so that they get the network. So let's fix up those real issues. Why should somebody die? Why should somebody not get their food because of this entire thing?
Mr. Nalin Kohli wants to rebut very quickly, a rebut, and then I'll move to our other two guests. Mr. Kohli, go ahead.
I'd like to come in for a quick response on this, Faye, please. Well, I mean, 3-4 things. I don't agree with Mr. Ritesh. He's entitled to his point of view. Let's fix this first. So therefore, let's first remove Garibi, and why should any one of us do anything else? We should all work on that. You're supposed to work simultaneously for every segment of society. It's not a linear. We live in a multilinear world. What about WhatsApp? Go and read the Karmanya Singh, Shreya Singh WhatsApp case, which is exactly what it was all about. UI and in rural India, the amount of WhatsApp, the amount of data being used today, go and check at the figures. Today, more data is consumed and more internet usage is there in the rural areas than in the urban, in the suburban sectors. People have more, there are 398 million now smartphones. I mean, people are on WhatsApp, they sign up, they don't know what they are signing up. So just because they are ignorant, you can't say that here. And the last thing is, Aadhar isn't meant to be only. I think Aadhar is being feared because it leaks out, not leaks out, but draws out the risks in our. People had 2 PAN cards, 3 PAN cards. There were shell companies which had 100 bank accounts. You can't have 100 bank accounts now because you will be Aadhar linked. These are the people who moved it.
But Mr. Kohli, what is your response to Subramanian Swamy, member of the BJP and member of Parliament?
Not that Mr. Ritesh is there. I'm saying their point is really to create the fear on it. You have to prevent it. See,
I'm not over here to create a fear.
What is Mr. Kohli, what's your response to Subramanian Swamy's statement that we're creating a risk for national security because our Aadhar data is not safe? And this is a member of Parliament with the BJP.
Well, I mean, he's entitled to his point of view.
Okay.
But Mr. Swamy...
Yes,
so that's okay. I'm also a spokesperson of the party. I'm not taking the identical stand. Mr. Swamy is entitled to. I'm telling you my party stand as the spokesperson. Why shouldn't Mr. Swamy or you or me or any one of us have a point of view? We are entitled to it. But when you are answering in a debate, we don't speak on an individual point of view. We look at it from a larger perspective.
All right, I'm going to bring in the other two guests. Sanjay Jha of the Congress joins us right now. Sanjay Jha, link or not to link?
Faye, let me tell you this straight, you know, that I'm absolutely astonished as to how the Bharatiya Janata Party has developed such a passionate love for Aadhar. And, you know, at a time when the Congress Party introduced the Aadhar only for welfare subsidies for the targeted,
we all know that it's well documented, but I want to know, should we link or should we not link? No, okay, so let me flip it then. Sanjay Jha, if you were, as the Congress Party, the ones who came up with the idea, why are you against it now?
Well, that's exactly what I was explaining, that we had looked at Aadhar only from the point of view of targeted distribution of welfare budgets. The BJP said, you know, this can become an electronic surveillance system. It can become a monstrous threat to Indian democracy. They are the ones who are actually doing it. And today they are defending Aadhar's massive spread, including yours and my mutual fund strategy, our buying of insurance, air tickets, hotel reservations, even death certificates. Why? I think the question that everybody needs to ask is the intent of this government. I was hearing a very, you know, eloquent spokesperson on the other side talk about Aadhar. But, you know, I think it's time at 9:45 in the night, we don't want to hear these motherhood and apple pie statements. This is the government, by the way, Faye. that actually brought in Aadhar as a money bill because it did not want to have a discussion with the opposition, who knew this was a big threat and it could actually threaten individual privacy, and we would have brought up the issue of data protection and the monumental frauds that can happen. The second is a big lie that it is going to prevent corruption. I can give you latest data. There are articles written down by many experts who have done the surveys, especially in Jharkhand, where a young girl, Santoshi Kumari, died of starvation because the government of Mr. BJP felt that there was no Aadhar seeding happening and it could not link with a ration card. The third point, corruption continues even as we talk, because there is a quantity corruption where the dealers are still playing mischief, and that is a reality. So what is the problem that you have today? Aadhar has become an all-encompassing, a government fiat, a monstrous machine that threatens you and me. And the question that we need to ask the BJP is, if the Supreme Court is still hearing the case, what is this big tearing hurry to make every citizen of India put every commercial transaction of his linked to Aadhar? What is the government going to gain by getting to know which mutual fund does Faye D'Souza buy, or which insurance fund, which insurance
Well, actually, let me be very clear. Sanjay Jha, let me be very clear. My mutual funds are all clearly declared, not just to the government, the income tax authority, also to the organization I work for, because we have a very clear investment code and we have to make quarterly declarations. And, you know, everybody knows what mutual funds I have. There's nothing to be gained from finding out from another source. But I'll ask Nalin Kohli this question. Nalin Kohli, the question of death due to Aadhar. A woman from Uttar Pradesh, this was November 16th. The girl in Jharkhand, which was October 17th. And the case in October 17th of 3 brothers who allegedly died in Karnataka because they were denied food rations because of Aadhar. Secondly, Sanjay Jha's question of what is the hurry? Why can't we wait for the Supreme Court? Nalin Kohli, go ahead.
First of all, there is no stay. Any advocate and anybody who knows basic law, there is no stay. So, I mean, if there is a stay, the government always respects that. If there's no stay, you don't stop working. The matter is being decided, will be decided. In any case, it's also a Supreme Court bench that said that you can link up income tax PAN cards with what you call the Aadhar. And let me just point out about, you know, this whole thing. Some people, it's really a worry. And it should be a worry. Between 2006 and 2012, more than 2 lakh companies were created, which are shell companies, which have been shut. They are all been Aadhar linked now. And out of these, one company during demonetization transacted, it had 64 lakhs. It put in 8 crores 70 lakh rupees and withdrew it also within a few days through a whole series of 100 plus accounts. So therefore, there are people who are worried. What about people having 3 PAN cards? That's not the poorest of the poor who are crying for ration. These are people who don't want to pay tax. So therefore, if there's a linkage taking place and eliminating corruption, that is the fight against corruption. It is not saying corruption has disappeared. Who brought in corruption? I mean, from 1947, the first scam in this country is the Jeep scam. 1948. I don't think Prime Minister Modi or anyone from the BJP was at the helm. It was Pandit Nehru.
No, please
the
don't.
last major scam is the 2G Colgate and all adjudicated by them. Show me the scam against Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
No, hang on, gentlemen. If I may interrupt you, please. I don't have the time for this.
We have this in a decent way. Mr. Jha and I always have this.
No, Mr. Jha and Mr. Kohli. No, I don't want to get derailed. Gentlemen, please, because all the scams are quite adequately documented and everybody has access to them.
I want to be in a show because I don't wish to be rude like Mr. Jha.
Yes, Mr. Kohli. For my audience who wants to know, Mr. Jha, please. Mr. Jha, please.
Calm down.
Okay, all right. Please calm down for my sake. For my audience who's interested in the scams of India from independence onward, Jeep scam onward to the latest, please Google it. The information is widely available on the internet. What we're still looking at today is link or not to link. Ashish Dikshit, advocate Supreme Court, who is pro-Aadhar from what I understand. Ashish Dikshit, why do you say we should link Aadhar with, and let me point out, mutual funds, insurance companies, Provident Fund, bank account, flight tickets, train tickets, frequent flyer miles of Air India now asking, and school board exams. It's being widely asked for across the board. Why should we make these links? Ashish Dikshit.
See, as far as this, as a legal perspective, if I may give you, I am only concerned whether the Aadhar Act satisfies the test of being a reasonable act. And as far as government is asking for the details, the Aadhar Act is very clear that it is an act to provide for as a good governance. So if anything, if there is something which government thinks that it is going to felicitate or is going to help in bringing good governance, the government is well within their rights to ask people to link various services with Aadhar, so that the government has a complete database of what is happening in the Indian economy overall. Number two, if there was a panelist who was saying that the matter is pending in Supreme Court. In our country, the law is till the time any act is declared to be ultra virus or has been stayed by the Supreme Court or by the High Court, it can be very well implemented. We cannot have a situation that government brings an act or brings a law, someone challenges it in the court of law, and you stay the operation of the act. This will be a bizarre situation in the country, that yes, because the matter is pending in Supreme Court, we should not implement. And Aadhar as a law will gradually improve. I am, as on date, I am concerned whether Aadhar has the mechanism to protect. If you see, Aadhar has all these sections which cover data leakages. It also provides for the punishment if there is data leakage. So in these circumstances, when everything is provided in the act, why should government not implement it? And why will people hide information? See, if a person who is fair, who is transparent, is not worried about linking his Aadhar, his services with Aadhar number.
Okay, so you're saying if
of the Act,
all right, so Ashish Dixit, are you suggesting, if I may, Ashish Dixit, are you suggesting that if there is an Indian right now in the country who's uncomfortable linking their Aadhar to any of the other information, it's because they're not being honest, because they have something to hide? Is that the suggestion you're making?
Possibly, like if you are
possibly. So you're making a vague suggestion. So you have to take a stand. Either you're calling all of us criminals.
No, it's not a vague suggestion. Faye, do you?
But that's a loose comment to make, saying the only reason why you have a problem is because actually give me solid evidence of why you believe Indians who are watching right now should make these links.
Do you see any person?
And the law tells us we're innocent until you prove us guilty. So it doesn't, it doesn't work for you as an officer of the law, as a lawyer, to turn around and say, if you're not linking your Aadhar, they must have something to hide, which is not fair. Because I've given PAN card, I've given all of my details. Salaried people have TDS. So Nalin Kohli wants to take this over. Nalin Kohli, go ahead.
No, I would feel. Say, while Ashish was speaking about the law and about the protection, I think that would be too harsh a comment which he was making to say that if anyone is not comfortable sharing it, means they are corrupt. No, that linkage would be incorrect. For the only reason, there could be people who for corrupt reasons are scared they would be exposed, like having two income tax PAN cards or like that. However, there is also a segment of people who may principally want to oppose something. And that is also true in a society, and certainly they have a right to oppose it. But once a law becomes a law, then we all have to be compliant with it. So therefore, if someone decides, I don't want to wish to use my phone and link it with Aadhar and makes a statement of it, if it's mandatory and they don't, then they will opt out of using a phone. That is their choice. There are people who may want to live on an island and say, I don't want to eat anything except naturally grown. So everyone has a different concern. The point I made at the beginning is not all the concerns are identical, and it would be unfair to say all concerns are identical. Right, the government, when it looks at it, looks at the wider argument, not looking at the isolated exceptions.
So, Mr. Kohli, let me ask you this question then. When we say you can opt out of using your phone, and we consider all of the things we're linking this to right now. So opt out of using your phone, opt out of using your bank account, opt out of using insurance, provident fund, pensions, hospitals, train tickets, airline tickets. How is an individual to function without all of these things effectively?
Yeah.
It impedes on your right to life.
Exactly.
Well, I just told you. I said
Which
there
is
are
a
some people
fundamental
who would
right.
like to live on an island and grow their own vegetables.
So you're calling these people... No, but who are these people?
This is a culture of a draconian police
So
state.
there are people who choose that. There are people who go to the Himalayas and sit there in Penis, not having bank
Ritesh
account,
Bhatia, are you
not
one of those
having
people?
anything. So I said it's a choice.
I'm definitely not one of those
Deny
people.
that choice to someone. That's the point I'm saying.
So Ritesh Bhatia is with me in the studio.
That's okay.
Are you going to grow dreadlocks and go live in the Himalayas because you don't want to be part of civilized society anymore, Ritesh Bhatia? Is that the route you're taking?
It's not an
No, not at all.
impossibility, Faye. My argument is clear. It's not an impossibility. You know what I'm saying.
Ritesh Bhatia. So basically,
For example,
Nalin Kohli is calling those people who don't want to link their Aadhaar, absolutely like dreadlock growing, society rejecting cuckoos. Go ahead, Ritesh Bhatia. What's your argument?
See, the thing is, if the law demands it, it's fine.
Well,
if the law demands
Faye,
me
this
to
is the
go
height
on
of
the
political
road which is
arrogance.
full of potholes and everything, then I, as a citizen, I can demand that this needs to be fixed.
Yes.
It's causing problems to me, so
Yes.
this needs to be fixed. I am not against Aadhar. Let me make it very clear to the audience as well as to you, sir. I'm not against this. I'm telling you there are several problems in it. There was a client of mine who came to me. He said, my bank is Punjab National Bank, but my Aadhar got linked to SBI. There was another person who said, my number was this. When I went to change my number, my name got changed over there. So there are severe flaws over there. I'm just requesting you that let's look up at these flaws. So the main thing of data, Mr. Kohli, is the data triad, which is the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability. All these three things are just not there in the place that they should be. That's all I'm saying. I'm just not saying, I'm not starting a propagation that, okay, everybody de-link, opt out. No, let's do it.
So Ritesh's point is that why can't we wait until the system is actually solid and foolproof and then insist that everybody get into it? Sanjay Hegde joins us right now. Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court. There was a delay in linking him up to the show.
A quick question. May I just give a quick comment?
Mr. Kohli, I want to bring Sanjay Hegde in because he's just joined and I want his opening comments. Sanjay Hegde, to link or not to link, why do you believe that citizens should make their information available on the Aadhaar system right now, given the fact that we are being asked for mutual funds, for insurance policies and all of the other things? Where do you stand, Sanjay Hegde?
I stand firmly against Aadhaar. I stand even more firmly against linking. What exactly is linking? Linking essentially ensures that your data can be hyperlinked through multiple databases. If you link your mobile phone and your credit card company, it means that your credit card company has access to what you do on your mobile network. All your data which runs your life, all the data about your life is open to everybody, wherever there is a linkage found. Now, what is the hurry to link everything when the basic Aadhaar system itself is under challenge in the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court has not yet given a verdict. This kind of administrative hurry in the name of public good, the last time I saw it in this country was during the emergency when sterilization was advocated as a cure for everything. You had a problem with population control. Then, irrespective of the consent of the governed, you said we have our quotas, we have to bring population down under control. So let's sterilize everybody who's capable. That's the exact kind of thinking which is going behind Aadhaar and the way it is being evangelized as a one-stop cure for everything. The good thing that this Aadhaar pushing has done is it has made many citizens aware of their rights. It has made citizens question. It has made citizens question, why does my mobile phone operator need a link as well as my banker? Why do they both need links to the Aadhaar? And then whoever can link the two together has access to most of my life. Why does
I also want your response on, since you joined us late, or a couple of comments that were made.
Want to look at every aspect of my life just because they can.
Right. Mr. Agre, I want your comments, since you joined us late, on a couple of comments that were made before you came in. Nalin Kohli's argument was Google and Facebook have your data, so why are you uncomfortable when it comes to the government? He said data breaches that we've seen right now are like accidents. We have to figure out how to fix the problems. That doesn't mean you throw out the baby with the bathwater. And he suggested that people who don't want to link Aadhar to their mobile phones can stop using mobile phones. They're like those who want to live on an island and only eat organic food, or those who want to live in the Himalayas cut off from society. Does that in any way infringe on our right to life? Do you buy that argument, Mr. Hegde?
More. If the law of the land applies to you, so you will either follow the law of the land. So don't
buy it.
You either follow the law of the land or you live on an island, Mr. Hegde.
Having my data and the government having my data.
Exactly.
Facebook can't put me in jail. My government can. That's the first thing. Secondly,
but sir, your government can put you in jail
it is not that we ask to be noble savages.
They will not put you in jail for no reason.
I am asking, what is the price for my connectivity to the mobile network?
What are you saying?
Just because I want to be connected to the mobile network, does it mean that I have to hand over all details of my life? How many times I call my wife, how many times I call my doctor, or how many times I call somebody else? The entire data, why should my mobile company know and why should my government know? What is this? In the name of saying that SIM cards are being used for a few IED explosions somewhere or the other, the government wants to know every detail of how I use my mobile network. Why do you need it? And I refuse to give it. If I refuse to give it, am I just a savage who wants to be cut off from society? Is being governed subject to constant surveillance? These are questions which we get no reasonable answer to. Oh, everybody can surveil you. Why should the government not surveil you? If you have nothing to hide, why should the government not look over your shoulder? Sorry, I feel uncomfortable with somebody looking over my shoulder. Sorry, I don't think it is civilized to have Mr. Nalin Kohli's government or Mr. Sanjay Jha's government having the capacity to look into my life.
Okay. Well, we have a couple of people on the phone line right now. Mr. Kohli, I also want to come back to you after we take these calls about what the deadlines are and why there's so much confusion when it comes to the linking of the deadlines and why these messages that have come out from banks and mobile phone operators have not stopped. But Colonel Rajesh Verma on the phone line from Meerut. Colonel Rajesh Verma, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a point for Mr. Kohli,
yes.
BJP representative and the lawyer.
Yes.
I hope they are able to hear me out.
Yes, they can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay. My point is, while I fully appreciate the efforts which are taken by the government in introducing Aadhar, however, that urgency to implement that without all the issues which are in place is a point which I want to highlight. I want to highlight my own particular case so that I drive it home. My mother-in-law stays with me. I am serving in army in some remote place. Presently, I am on leave here in Meerut.
Yes.
And she is a paralyzed person for last 6 years. Now, she belongs to Jaipur. The bank says, and she is on family pension. The bank says that you first link your Aadhar, then only we'll disburse you any amount of money which you want to withdraw. And she is not in a position to do it. I am not in a position to take her. They don't do it on telephone. They don't do it online. And you are just left high and dry. And that lady, and my wife is the only child, unfortunately. Now, I don't know where to go, what to do. I've been running from bank to bank in Meerut and other places and ringing up the branches in Jaipur that kindly link it. But they don't. They say you come, you do. Come, firstly, making Aadhar itself was a challenge. She is bedridden 24/7. So I had requested Aadhar people. Somehow they came, though little late. None the matter, they came. And now I don't know how to link that to their account. Their account is of ages. It's a family pension, which is a drawing. And that leaves a person in a very complicated situation.
Yes.
So while I fully appreciate this Aadhar issue, but we have to have some ways and means by which we can enable it to elderly person, paralyzed person, and so many other issues are there. We have to look into all these aspects. That was my small point.
All right, that's a fair point. We also have Sudarshan on the phone line from Belgaum or Belgavi in Karnataka. Sudarshan, go ahead.
Yes. My question is to Mr. Nalin Kohli.
Yes.
Why is the government not linking voters' ID with Aadhar card?
There is a law against that. That's a fair question, though. And we have one more question that's come in on Twitter, Mr. Kohli. This one's from Ankit Gupta. He says, what if the Supreme Court gives a decision against mandatory linking of Aadhar? Will the government then destroy all the data that has been submitted to it by all of the citizens? So if the verdict goes against the linking, what happens to all the data that has been collected till then? Mr. Kohli.
Well, first on the army officer gentleman who had pointed out that, yes, that I can understand has been definitely a painful case for him. And given the facts, that seems to be something that, well, he said the Aadhar people came later with this. But yes, there may be some cases like this, genuine cases that require to be looked at. Because the system is not meant to keep it. With regard to others, there have been in the papers also we've read, whether it comes to benefits and other things, you can't stop it per se. With regard to your question about, the deadlines being shifted, this is also happening because the courts have stepped in and the courts are saying, why are you sending people? In fact, one of the honorable court justices at the Supreme Court said, I'm getting these messages on a daily basis. So after that, they have certainly reduced. I was getting them regularly. I'm not getting them as regularly. The third point was with regard to what was the last question? Just remind me, Faye.
So there was one question on voter IDs and the last question was, what will the government do to the data if the Supreme Court verdict goes against Aadhar?
Yeah, the data one. Yeah. See, with regard to voter ID and all this, ultimately today we need to bear in mind that people's voter identity is not the only one. You may go with a passport, a driving license, any identity. Identities are getting linked. With regard to voter identity, I haven't spoken with anyone. Perhaps it would be in the future, but I can't give a definitive answer. With regard to the last, what if the Supreme, we have to wait. If has no value in a sense, except in a theoretical sense, because if I joke and say if my aunt had a beard, she'd be my uncle, but my aunt is my aunt. So in this case, till the judgment comes out, we are not going to make a plan that what would happen. If a judgment comes out, strikes anything down unconstitutional or puts in restrictions, they have to be complied with. It's simple as that. Laws have come, sections have been held as unconstitutional, ultra-virus, so it be it. Then it absolutely has to go back to the situation before that. But as of now, given the trend, I don't know whether that would be something that would be very probable.
Right, Sanjija, go ahead.
Yeah, Faye, I'm appalled. I mean, the government never seems to learn. You have a situation where there is no data protection. The technology systems can be hacked into. Aadhar data has been leaked. It's also established beyond doubt that Aadhar can be hacked. And these are realities. And even today, the BJP spokesperson believes that if it happens, we will take an action at that point of time. It really tells you of a very casual, frivolous attitude towards the citizens of India, because they are being told today by banks. I got a call today from my bank saying, Mr. Jha, you can go online and put your Aadhar link. I said I refuse to do it until the Supreme Court verdict comes. And they said, well, that's your decision. But why are people being hounded? It takes a lot of time away. And for people who have submitted their data, what is the guarantee from this government that could not even prevent millions of data of the Jharkhand government being leaked from guaranteeing that that data will be destroyed? How? Do they have a process? Do they have any legal document to tell that they will be able to confirm to you and me that our data has been delinked?
No, actually, I understand what you're saying, but I have a very specific question for Nalin Kohli, and this is a clarification, Sanjija, if you'll forgive me, that the whole country wants right now. Nalin Kohli, I have in my hand right now the affidavit filed by the government in Supreme Court on the 2nd of November 2017. It says very clearly that the date may be extended up to the 31st of March 2018 to link bank accounts with Aadhar. And I'm quoting here, therefore, until 31st/03/2018, existing bank accounts will not be made non-operational for not linking Aadhar. Now, given that this is an affidavit with the Supreme Court, which is where we've sourced this from, please tell my audience, yes, what is the deadline now of linkage? Is it the 31st of December? Is it the 31st of March? What is the deadline?
Yeah, like my bank website shows
31st of
March.
Yes,
No, it's 31st of March. It was also announced in the papers. As I mentioned, one of the honourable
Yes, I got a
justices
message
also
for
raised
31st
this
of
point.
March.
That's the affidavit. That's the official stand of the government.
Then
All right,
why
so
are
it's
the
31st
banks,
of March. So, and it was also the Supreme Court made it very
Or
clear
if a
that
judgment comes earlier.
that banks and telecom companies need to make it very clear to their customers that the deadline has been moved. But messages are still going out for the 31st of December. Is that non-compliance to Supreme Court
about
instructions?
the telephone companies, just a quick comment.
Yes, please,
There is
go ahead.
another clarification that came out with regard to the telephone companies, which was that you can send it now by SMS. What had happened is, one of the issues being said is because India is high tele-density, I mean, in terms of most of us have mobile phones, some of us have even multiple mobile phones. So in all of it, what was felt, physically going and, going out there, doing it all may be a problem. So there was a talk, and I read this also in the paper, that there might be alternative mechanisms to feed your Aadhar number.
Okay, so I'm clarifying now that the deadline is the 31st of March 2018, according to the Government of India, to link your bank accounts with your Aadhar for all existing bank accounts. All new bank accounts, it's likely that you will be asked for an Aadhar on opening that bank account. So if your bank calls you, tell them very clearly that Nalin Kohli, national spokesperson of the BJP and advocate at the Supreme Court, was on national television, and he clarified this, and which is why you will not link until the 30th of March, because the deadline is the 31st of March. Sanjay Hegde, I have this question for you now.
This is too much credit. That's the Government of India's affidavit. I'm nothing before the Government of India and its affidavit.
But I have another question for Sanjay Hegde. Sanjay Hegde, my question is this. Insurance companies, mutual fund companies and pension companies have made it clear to their customers that they have to link before the 31st of December in order to not stop continuation of services. Now, insurance contracts or insurance policies are contracts between insurer and insured, where I'm paying you so that when I need the money, you will give it to me. Now, the IRDA has written to us saying that unless you link your Aadhar, you will not get an insurance claim payout. Pensioners are not getting pension payout from PPF or from PF because of non-linkage of Aadhar. Is that in breach of contract? Is it unconstitutional? Is it fundamentally unethical or unfair, Mr. Hegde?
It is all of the above. This is a government which speaks in two voices and more. This is a government which solemnly tells the Supreme Court one thing and then subverts it on the ground. They tell the Supreme Court, please decide it. No. Till then, we'll extend the deadline till 31st of March. But on the ground, they keep telling the telecom companies, they keep telling the banking companies, push it. Now I'll just give you a little example. I am told that in the bank, in the Supreme Court of India, in the UCO Bank, they will not be issuing us fresh checkbooks without Aadhar. This is the way that the entire system is being subverted. This is the way that they say one thing in court and they try to make things so uncomfortable that people fall in line. People do, and the problem with Aadhar is that it is like Hotel California, as I've said earlier. You can check in any time, but you can never check out.
This is not correct.
Once the data is there, once the linkage is there, there is no way to prevent duplication of the data. You don't know who has the data, and no government, no set of engineers can assure you that they can wipe it out. The UK tried it. The UK had a similar system, and then they destroyed it, but they still were not able to destroy the data. As far as the US Social Security number is concerned, which they keep harping about, that is on the verge of going, because after the Equifax leak of about 130 million Americans, American senators have called for say Social Security numbers as data checks to go. You are bringing in an architecture of totalitarianism with Aadhar, one key to rule them all, one key to find them, one key to bind them, and in the dark rule over all of them. As long as you can stay out of Aadhar, this is what I tell everyone in the country. stay out of
this is why we get Sanjay Hegde to come on this really young channel, because he makes Lord of the Rings references and he makes Hotel California references while talking about Aadhar. Nalin Kohli, our two pro-Aadhar panelists will respond. Nalin Kohli first and then Ashish Dikshit. Nalin Kohli, respond also to my insurance question, please. Nalin Kohli, go ahead.
No. I mean, it's... Well, my first thing is, of course, Mr. Sanjay Hegde, and he's entitled to, as every citizen, to have a point of view, even if it's on the extreme side of the scale. And, you know, some people do thrive on conspiracy theories for various reasons. I'm sure, given the extreme point that he has put out, that this is a government that is subverting it, calling in as if the government of India's only job every morning is to call some person who sends a message from a bank. And, you know, we all get, 20 messages from various people, various mobile companies, not on Aadhar alone, sending us general messages as if that is the job of the Prime Minister downwards. Now, come on, let's start sending messages because we are subverting a plan. It's not like that. These are extreme points of view. That's okay. Society has all, liberal, extreme, all sorts of views. But for all the reasons I gave in the beginning of the show, I am on the complete opposite scale as Mr. Sanjay Hegde. And I find it fascinating that a man as, senior as him, would probably be happy giving all his preferences about what he likes to buy, shop for, check on Google, check otherwise on his mobile be tracked. The latest saying that even if you remove the chip, which was in the papers of the New York Times, I think 2 days ago, remove your chip and you still can be tracked by your mobile. So all of that is acceptable in our modern world. But if a government brings in something, that must be wrong because the government of India has a conspiracy against us.
But Mr. Kohli, I just want to put in one more piece of information, if I may. Isn't it true also that the Indian Bank Officers Association has also taken the government to Supreme Court saying, do not ask us to make this linkage, do not force us to get people to sign up for Aadhar because it's not our job and we don't believe it's constitutional. There is a case pending before the Supreme Court as well, and the bank officers have taken the government and the RBI to court. Is that not true, Mr. Kohli?
Maybe. But
do you believe also, do you believe that the All India Bank Officers Association is also at the extreme end of this conversation then?
It would be ideological.
No. Do you believe that that entire association is at the extreme end of this conversation also?
I gave an argue about the extreme conversation. No, Faye. I think, Faye, now you are making the mistake, with due respect to you, of what you were telling our colleague Ritesh. No, it wasn't Ritesh. Ashish was the gentleman, and you were saying,
Dikshit,
are you making a suggestion that everyone who doesn't sign it? So you're doing the same, making a suggestion that am I saying something about the bank officers? No. I'm saying it could be well driven in terms of work, demands. It could be part of the union demands. It could be part of greater salary expectations. It could be many other things. Why are you linking it to Mr. Sanjay Hegde's arguments? Mr. Sanjay Hegde's arguments, I have said exactly what I have to, as he has said exactly what he wants to.
All right. Mr. Hegde, I'll give you one rebut because that ended with your arguments.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, go ahead.
The response is always the same. It's not just this government. Nalin, tomorrow you will be in opposition. Think of a government which is entirely opposed to you. Having the ability to track what you spend, having the ability to track whom you speak to, and being able to watch everything that you do. Governments in this country come and go, parties come and go. But giving the power to the government to totally own your life or to switch you off the grid altogether, that is exactly the recipe for totalitarianism. That Big Brother can not only watch over you, Big Brother can.
I will agree on one point that you are saying,
and that is why it is dangerous to give such power to,
of course, Big Brother can. You're right about it.
I don't care whether it is Nalin Kohli's government or Sanjay Jha's government.
No.
I distrust governments having that kind of power.
So just to add to what Sanjay is saying, Sanjay, if you remember, the concept of tracking was first, that I've seen at least visually, was Enemy of the State, Will Smith, that film. I mean, it tells you 20 years ago, the kind of tracking that was being done. My point where we agree is on one thing, that at the end of the day, abuse, misuse, leakage of data has to be protected. What the other point is, in terms of everyone being watching you, my view is completely opposite. We are being watched. We are being tracked with our preferences on mobile phones, Google, Yahoo, logins, everything. So I think I've at least arrived at one consciousness with me is, hey, live a transparent life, nothing to fear. I mean, if we have anything to fear, it's there. But with where I agree with you completely is no government, my government, your government, ex-government, no government has the should have the power of an absolute thing to be able to, even on the jail thing, to even misuse, abuse or leak out your unauthorized this. For example, we both know as advocates, snooping as part of the intelligence network is exactly how they go about it. But then how you tap somebody, whether it is to be done, for example, a landline requires the clearance exactly from the Home Secretary. There are mechanisms in place. Somebody who breaks that mechanism is going to be liable for punishment. And that's where the courts step in. Yes. So I have a great faith in the judicial system ultimately. That's
all right. On that note, I have to wrap up this discussion because we've run out of time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. That was a very eloquent discussion on Aadhar, and we come away as viewers with some very, very important points. Point number one, you're already being watched. You're already being listened into, and that is going to keep a lot of us up tonight. And the argument that if you don't allow me to put a surveillance camera inside your home, you must have something to hide, goes against our fundamental right to privacy. That's what the fundamental right to privacy is. The right to decide to be left alone if you want to be left alone without losing your right to livelihood. Thankfully, the Supreme Court has seized of the matter and we will have a verdict. But the big takeaway for me here today has been a confirmation clearly that the government's stand on the linkage is that the deadline is the 31st of March next year. It is not the 31st of December. And the Supreme Court will give us a decision, a verdict, before then. So if anybody calls you, just tell them very clearly, send them a copy of this show, tell them very clearly, according to an affidavit from the government to the Supreme Court, the deadline is now the 31st of December, the 31st of March. Stop threatening me. It is against the law to do so. Let's stand up against at least this part, the messages, the phone calls that are making you nervous. In the meantime, there are several other stories around and around Aadhar that we will keep bringing to you. I welcome you also to get in touch with us on all of the details you see on your screen and share with us experiences that you have so we can continue to bring them to the forefront of public conversations. Thanks for watching.